Hello, and welcome back to the deep dive.
Great to be back.
Welcome to the Detox Health channel. We have many more health deep dives planned, actually. They'll bring you in-depth knowledge on various wellness topics.
And the idea is really to give you a solid understanding without having to wade through, tons of different articles and websites yourself.
Exactly. It's Friday, and, well, we thought we'd end the week focusing on one particular herb. It's probably right there in your pantry. Cumin.
Cumin. That warm, earthy spice. So common, yet maybe more interesting than we think.
That's the plan. Today, we're zeroing in on it. We've been digging into various health resources to really understand the science or the potential science behind its benefits.
Yeah, trying to pull out the most useful, maybe even surprising insights about what this simple spice might be doing.
So let's jump right in. We should probably start with something lots of people deal with, digestive issues, hiccups, you could say.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
How often traditional remedies, like using cumin for indigestion, actually find support in modern research.
Right. It's not just some old wives' tale, then.
Seems not. For generations, it's been the go-to for soothing an upset stomach. And what our sources suggest is, well, there's a real reason for that. Current research does indicate cumin can lend a hand in keeping digestion running smoothly.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just it makes you feel better. The research points to specific mechanisms. One of the Healthline articles we looked at mentioned cumin might actually boost the activity of your digestive enzymes.
Yeah, those little workers in your gut breaking down food. Cumin might give them a bit of a productivity boost, you could say?
Exactly, and it's like a chain reaction, isn't it?
It seems so. That same Healthline source also pointed out that cumin can encourage your liver to release more bile.
Bile. Okay, that's for breaking down fats and absorbing nutrients.
Precisely. So cumin might be helping things along from a couple of different angles, making the whole process more efficient.
Like oiling all the gears. A lot of people struggle with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. That can be really rough.
It really can.
Interestingly, one of the Healthline articles mentions a study. 57 IBS patients took concentrated cumin for just 2 weeks and reported improved symptoms.
That is pretty quick. 2 weeks isn't long for something like IBS.
No, it's not.
But it's a key point there, concentrated cumin. It suggests that while, sprinkling it on your food might offer some general support, for something more specific like IBS, maybe a higher, more targeted dose is what made the difference in that study.
Right. So it opens up possibilities, but maybe not just from seasoning alone for serious cases.
Exactly. It's an interesting avenue, though.
So for you listening, if you've ever had that after-meal discomfort, or if you're managing something like IBS, maybe looking into cumin, could be worthwhile.
Worth considering, definitely.
Okay, let's switch gears. Something vital for energy. Iron.
Yes. This is another area where cumin is surprisingly potent.
Yeah.
One of the Healthline sources really emphasizes this. Cumin seeds are naturally rich in iron.
Rich how? Like how much are we talking?
Well, get this. Just 1 single teaspoon of ground cumin has about 1.4 milligrams of iron.
1 teaspoon. That sounds like a lot for a spice.
It is. It works out to about 17.5% of the recommended daily intake for adults. Almost a fifth of your daily needs.
Wow. In just a tiny spoonful. It really shows how small additions can add up, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And iron deficiency is, well, it's a huge global issue. Affects a massive chunk of the population. So finding easy dietary sources is really valuable.
Yeah, incredibly important.
And the need varies, right? Another Healthline source pointed out, kids need it for growth. Young women often need more. It's fundamental at different life stages.
So getting enough through diet is key. And cumin stands out here.
It really does. The info we saw suggests few foods are as iron dense. So even if you're just using small amounts for flavor, you're still getting a noticeable little iron boost.
Good to know. A sprinkle here and there might be doing more than just adding taste.
Precisely. And the benefits don't stop there. Cumin's also packed with these beneficial plant compounds.
Okay, plant compounds. We hear that term a lot. What's actually in cumin?
Well, according to several Healthline sources, we're talking things like terpenes, phenols, flavonoids, alkaloids. Quite a mix of these natural substances.
And many of these act as antioxidants, right? Protecting our cells.
That's the key function for many of them, yes. One Healthline source explains it well. Think of free radicals as these unstable molecules bouncing around, causing damage oxidation.
Like little troublemakers inside us?
Kinda, yeah. They can contribute to serious issues over time, clogged arteries, inflammation linked to diabetes, even damage to our DNA, as one source mentions.
Okay, that makes it clear why antioxidants are important.
And the antioxidants in cumin basically step in and neutralize these free radicals. They
Yeah.
stabilize them, stop the damage.
So they're like cellular bodyguards in a way.
That's a good analogy. And these antioxidant actions likely underpin many of cumin's other potential health benefits we're talking about. It's this internal defense system being supported.
Interesting. So that simple spice is helping out on a cellular level. Now, moving on.
Ah.
What about blood sugar? That's a big concern for many.
It is, and this is a really promising area for cumin research. Some components within cumin have shown potential in helping regulate blood sugar.
How so?
Well, one Healthline source highlighted a clinical study. Overweight individuals took a concentrated cumin supplement, and it actually improved some early indicators related to diabetes, which is definitely encouraging.
That is significant. And I think I read something about cumin potentially helping with long-term diabetes complications too. Something about AGs.
Yes, advanced glycation end products, AGs. Another Healthline source explained this. Basically, when blood sugar stays high for too long, the excess sugar can sort of stick to proteins in your body, almost like caramelizing them.
Caramelizing your proteins. That doesn't sound good.
No, it's not ideal. These AGEs impair function and can damage eyes, kidneys, nerves, blood vessels, all sorts of things.
Okay, so we want to keep those AGs low. How does cumin fit in?
Well, test tube studies, again mentioned by Healthline sources, have shown that certain compounds in cumin can actually reduce the formation of these AGEs.
Test tube studies, though. Does that translate?
That's the question, isn't it? While these were lab studies, the implication, as other sources suggest, is that maybe, just maybe, regularly using cumin as a seasoning might offer some benefit in controlling blood sugar over the long haul.
A possibility, then. That sprinkle might be doing more than we think.
It's possible.
Mm.
The exact how and how much are still being figured out, but it's definitely intriguing for people looking for dietary support for blood sugar.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk cholesterol. Another key health marker.
Yes, and again, some interesting findings here. We saw several clinical studies with positive effects mentioned by Healthline. One study, for instance, used just 75 milligrams of cumin twice a day for 8 weeks.
That doesn't sound like a huge amount.
No, it's pretty modest,
Yeah.
and it led to a decrease in unhealthy triglycerides.
Okay. And what about the LDL, the bad cholesterol?
Right. Another Healthline source pointed to a study where cumin extract lowered oxidized LDL, the really problematic kind, by nearly 10% over about 6 weeks.
Almost 10%. That's quite noticeable.
It is. And it wasn't just about lowering the bad stuff. There was another study with women mentioned in a different Healthline source. They had 3 grams of cumin with yogurt twice daily for 3 months.
Okay, bit more cumin there.
Yeah. And they saw an increase in their good HDL cholesterol compared to the yogurt-only group.
So potentially hitting cholesterol from multiple angles, lowering triglycerides, lowering bad LDL, raising good HDL.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
But, and this is important, the sources do acknowledge we don't know if just seasoning your food give the same effect as these concentrated supplement doses used in the studies.
Right, the dose question again.
Exactly. And not all studies showed these benefits either. So more research is needed for a really clear picture. But, for the listener keeping an eye on cholesterol, cumin is definitely on the research radar.
Good to know. Okay, digestion, iron, antioxidants, blood sugar, cholesterol. About weight management. Always a hot topic.
Yes. And there's some initial evidence here, too, mostly around concentrated cumin supplements.
Supplements again?
Seems to be the trend for these more pronounced effects. One Healthline source mentioned a study on overweight women. Those who added 3 grams of cumin to their yogurt lost more weight than the control group.
Interesting. Any others?
Yep. Another study, cited by Healthline, had participants taking 75 milligrams of cumin daily. They lost about 3 pounds more than the placebo group. And a third study showed a concentrated supplement led to about 2.2 pounds more weight loss over 8 weeks.
So some consistency there in those specific studies using supplements?
There seems to be a pattern in some studies, yes. But again, the caveat, not all studies show this, and it really looks like you might need those higher supplemental doses to see a noticeable effect on weight rather than just typical cooking amounts.
So intriguing, but maybe not a magic bullet just from seasoning.
Probably not a magic bullet, no. The evidence isn't definitive yet, but it's another area where cumin is being explored.
Okay, now let's shift focus slightly. Food safety. Cumin's been used for ages in cooking. Could there be a reason beyond just flavor?
Absolutely. That's a really interesting angle. One Healthline source suggests Cumin's long history as a seasoning might be partly due to its role in, well, keeping food safe.
Like a natural preservative.
In a way, yes. Many spices have antimicrobial properties, and cumin is one of them. Several healthline sources mention that compounds in cumin have been shown to slow down the growth of certain food-borne bacteria and even some types of fungi.
Wow. That makes sense from a historical perspective.
It does. And get
Hmm.
this, one source mentions that when we digest cumin, it releases a compound called megalomycin, which actually has antibiotic properties.
An antibiotic from digesting a spice.
Pretty remarkable, right? And there was even a test tube study suggesting cumin might help reduce drug resistance in certain bacteria, which is, a huge concern these days.
That is a big deal.
So that sprinkle of cumin might be adding a little layer of natural food safety too.
Fascinating. So flavor, potential health benefits, and maybe even a bit of food protection. But
Yeah.
we should probably talk cautions, right? Before people start eating cumin by the spoonful.
Always wise, yes. And our sources, WebMD and Healthline, offer guidance here. Generally, cumin in normal food amounts is safe for most people.
Okay, standard cooking amounts are fine.
Right. WebMD notes cumin powder and essential oil are also possibly safe when used medicinally, but some people might get a bit of stomach upset.
And allergies. Always a possibility, even if rare.
Exactly. Healthline mentions allergies are possible, but uncommon. WebMD also highlights a few specific situations. For pregnancy and breastfeeding, the usual advice applies. Stick to food amounts, as there isn't enough reliable info on higher doses.
Standard precaution. Makes sense. Anything else?
Yes, a couple of important ones from WebMD. Cumin might slow blood clotting, so if someone already has a bleeding disorder, it could potentially worsen it.
Okay, that's crucial.
And related to that, and also its potential effect on blood sugar, the recommendation is to stop using cumin supplements, or large amounts, at least 2 weeks before any scheduled surgery.
To avoid issues with bleeding or blood sugar control during the procedure. Got it. What about medications? Any interactions?
Yes, WebMD lists a few key ones. If you're on diabetes medication, adding a lot of cumin could potentially drop blood sugar too low. So close monitoring is needed.
Makes sense, combining effects.
Similarly, if you're taking drugs that slow blood clotting, like anticoagulants, cumin might increase the risk of bruising or bleeding.
Okay, another important interaction.
And one more mentioned was with the antibiotic rifampin. Cumin might increase its absorption, potentially boosting its effects or side effects.
So the bottom line is, especially if you have health conditions or take meds, talk to your doctor before adding significant amounts of cumin or supplements.
Absolutely. Always the best approach.
Did WebMD mention typical doses used in studies?
It did give some examples for adults using it medicinally. For the essential oil, studies used around 25-75 milligrams daily for up to 6 months. For the powder, 1.5 to 3 grams daily, up to 6 months. But they strongly stress consulting a healthcare provider for your specific situation.
Right, those are just study examples, not prescriptions. And what about just using it in cooking? Healthline had a take on that.
Yeah, Healthline made a good point. Many benefits, antioxidants, digestion aid, iron, you can likely get just from using cumin regularly as a spice in your meals.
So everyday use is probably beneficial.
Likely, yes. It's those more dramatic effects, weight loss, big cholesterol changes that seem to require the higher supplemental doses seen in studies. Their advice: be cautious with high doses beyond normal food intake, and definitely tell your doctor if you're thinking about supplements.
That seems like very balanced advice.
Okay.
Okay, so to kind of wrap up our deep dive on cumin.
It really packs a punch, doesn't it? We've seen potential support for digestion. It's a good iron source, loaded with antioxidants.
Plus that promising research on blood sugar and cholesterol, and even the potential food safety angle.
A surprisingly wide range of possibilities from one common spice.
And key takeaway. While supplements were used for some bigger effects in studies, just enjoying cumin in your everyday cooking likely offers many of these benefits too.
Exactly. It leads to a thought, doesn't it? Considering all this, how could you maybe intentionally use a bit more cumin, not just for flavor, but with wellness in mind?
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, what other common things in the pantry might have surprising health stories waiting to be uncovered?
Great question for future explorations.
Definitely some food for thought there. Well, if you found this deep dive into cumin insightful, please do subscribe to the Detox Health channel. We've got lots more in-depth explorations of health and wellness topics planned.
We're always digging into the science to bring you fascinating info for a healthier life.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.